You're listening to the Thriving Mindfully podcast. I'm Ananda Leeke, your Thriving Mindfully coach and podcast host. I'm also an artist, an author, a human design doula, and an interfaith reverend. The Thriving Mindfully podcast is a heart-centered, digital sacred space that I created to inspire and empower you to be present, well, and the real you. Tune into the latest conversation I've been having with myself and others about nurturing, transforming, and celebrating our lives, relationships, and career. Today's podcast explores how you can shine your light on yourself when you share your living. Share your living is the third core commitment of the Thriving Mindfully, heart-centered approach to being present, well, and the real you. Share your living is all about mindful communication. So tune in to what I had to say. Hey there. So I've been thinking a lot about how I share my living through community, being a part of communities as well as leading communities and being active in building them from the ground up. Share your living is the third core commitment of Thriving Mindfully, a heart-centered approach to being present, well, and the real you. And share your living involves mindful communication, mindful relationships, one-on-one relationships, group relationships, community relationships, the relationships you have with your loved ones, with your friends, with your associates, your colleagues, your peers, with folks in your local, state, and national and international communities. It is something that gives you a chance to show up and bring the real you into a space of relating with others. And I've been thinking a lot about how I show up in community, how I show up as a member of a community compared to how I show up as a leader of a community, and why community is so very important to me, and especially during these COVID years where my ability to be able to see folks face to face in person has been significantly limited, and in particular with traveling too, and not being able to see folks up close and be active with them in person. But thank goodness for the technology and the right use of technology. I've been able to be a part of communities. And as a member of a community and sharing my living with others in community, I've been able to show up as who I am in the moment. And it hasn't always been pretty. And I'm going to give a couple of examples. One of the communities that became a really big source of support for me during the early days or the early years of the COVID pandemic, because we're still going through it, right? One of those communities was the BIPOC community for Inside LA that was run by my brother love, Thomas Davis. And it was based on LA Pacific time, which meant that it was a 3-hour time difference. So it was Friday nights at 10 o'clock my time, Eastern Standard Time. And even though it had me up late, it didn't matter, because I was able to show up and be held with support by this community of people that were showing up in the best in the best way they knew how. And sometimes I wasn't there to, participate verbally. I was just there to just soak it all up. And there were some really hard times during 2020 and 2021. And that community was a lifeline for me because I was able to cuss, I was able to cry, I was able to express my anger, my frustration, my fear, and I didn't feel judged. I felt seen, I felt heard, and I was able to laugh, I was able to be inspired, I was able to listen and to be present to other folks. And during that process, I was invited to be a guiding teacher for that community. And at the same time that I was coming to it for support, I was leading and continue to lead the Thriving Mindfully Academy. And the Thriving Mindfully Academy started out as an in-person community that I built with the support of the owners of Key Kratom CBD and their staff in DC, as well as the various community members that came from Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and folks that were just in town visiting. And we built that community together on U Street in my neighborhood on Mondays, Mindful Monday meditation, which is what we offered. And we did that from 2018 to March of 2020. And then we had to go online, and we continued to meet. And then it turned into the academy in 2021. And it shifted somewhat. Still a community, but a little different in terms of the structure of how people can be a part of it. Leading a community and showing up and sharing my living as a leader of a community has given me a wonderful opportunity to be a space holder, to hold sacred space for folks, to offer from my heart to theirs a place where they can show up as they are, not be held to any standards in terms of judging them, offering them space to experience loving kindness and compassion and non-judgment, patience and forgiveness, reminding them that they have this birthright to all of those things, and that they too can turn within and get support from themselves through their breath, through their awareness of their birthright of mindfulness and self-care and self-love and self-worth. Yeah, so being able to serve as a guide, as a sacred space holder, as a reminder, as a source of inspiration, as someone that is here to support through sharing my living as a Thriving Mindfully coach and a community builder. That has been a huge, huge honor and a blessing. And it's fed me too, because there have been days where I've shown up in the community and my shit hasn't all been together. And the community blesses me with its love, with its compassion, with its loving kindness, with its patience, its forgiveness, its non-judgment. So I'm fed. And then I'm also fed because when you come together and you share your living in community, you're growing together. You're growing together. You're growing because you're learning. You're learning. You're being inspired by each other. You're being heard. You're being seen. You're being listened to. All of it. So sharing your living in community can give you a greater sense of accountability because folks see you and they hear you and they hold you to it. They hold you to what you say. And they also remind you that, hey, I see you over there. I see you struggling. I see you falling through and self-sabotaging. They call you on your shit. They're there helping you stand up because nobody does it alone. Nobody. I don't care who folks say they are, that they did it on their own. Nobody. You share your living with folks. And when you do it intentionally and mindfully, lovingly, and with compassion and non-judgment and patience and forgiveness, wow, you bless yourself and others profusely. So I want to stop right there and invite you to think about what are some of the communities that you have been a part of, both in-person communities and online communities, because your community could be your sacred spirituality, the people that you are connected to with the expression of your spirituality. Maybe you call it a healing community, or it's a religious community, a self-help community. It could be a community around, I know for myself, I'm building right now an in-person community of tennis beginner players like myself, just from our lessons. And that's forming a community all on its own, and we're supporting each other and we're learning together and growing. I've been a part of creative communities and other meditation communities, in person and online. So think about the communities that you've been a part of, the ones where you're a member. What makes those communities important to you? What makes them healthy for you to be a part of? And then I want you to think about how being a part of that community allows you to share your living with others. How does it enrich your life and your ability to show up as the real you in your relationships, both in the community and outside of the community? Wherever you find this podcast, leave a comment with your responses to one or both of those questions, or maybe I may have asked 3 questions or more. But whatever resonates for you, leave a comment. I'd love to hear what community is looking like for you. And if you lead a community, let me know what it's like to be a community leader. What makes you show up and share your living as a leader? What do you get from being a leader of a community or a guide of a community? And why do you do that? So I want to invite you to tune into some special messages, and you can learn about how to be in community with me, with the Thriving Mindfully Academy. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Thriving Mindfully podcast. If you're ready to be inspired and empowered with my coaching support, join me in the Thriving Mindfully Academy, Visit anandaleeke.com/academy. Now, if you're ready to dive deeper and move past your comfort zone with my one-on-one coaching program, book a discovery call with me today. Visit anandaleeke.com. If you need something juicy to read, check out my 3 mindfulness books: Love's Troubadours, a self-love and yoga-inspired novel; That Which Awakens Me, a mindful creativity memoir; and Digital Sisterhood, a mindful technology memoir. Go to anandaleeke.com/books. All of my books are available on Amazon.com. Well, that about wraps us up. And as I always like to say, may we all continue to embrace thriving mindfully in everything that we think, feel, say, and do. See you next time.